Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am moderator, joined by the illustrious BTT. Thermodynamics, having brought a fleet hurricane, a pair of Navy Harbingers, Navy Brutics, my good friend War Destined, in the Executor, a Svipal, a pair of Arbitrators, and a Hyena. Those Arbitrators are going to be rather crucial to lock down the Exodus core, which Brett Thomas will explain why.
Well, Exodus have brought rapid light missile spam. They've brought a Scimitar, dual Orthrus, dual Cerberus, dual Navy Osprey, with a Gila, a Stork, and a Vexor as support. This is a huge amount of light missiles that aims to kill anything small in kind of burst damage. Once it's burst through everything, it can start to chew it away at all these battle cruisers.
Yeah, if those Arbitrators are tracking Disruptor fit, it's going to be an unfortunate waste of 12 points for Thermodynamics, but if they have Missile Guidance Disruptors, which shut down the optimal and the explosion radius and velocity of those light missile ships, it will do a great deal to serve for the survivability of the Thermodynamics core, particularly that Executor, which has difficulty surviving already. Both the Guardian and the Neros can definitely headshot. The Executor being the Tech 1 variant, not having either resist or the HP of the Guardian and Oneros, which have been banned out by Exodus, so good banning by them. Thermodynamics choosing out to ban the Blackbird and the Curse.
Yeah, it looked like they definitely didn't want to face Ewalkers. In these setups, when you've got a nice sort of fleet battle cruisers, their weakness is ECM, due to them having a really low sensor strength, as we now get 10 seconds left on the counter before the match.
Yeah, Thermodynamics not also wanting to deal with the tracking disruption and the neuting from the Curse. It's something we've seen a lot. I can't help but feel that Exodus has really been in the better position here with the banning phase. And if we don't see Missile Guidance Disruptors on rather soon, it's going to be rather telling that these are tracking disruptor Arbitrators, which it looks like they are. They would have been on their targets rather early, had they been so. The Navy Osprey of Will Hawkseye is already taking a lot of damage. Thermodynamics is definitely on the backseat from these pick bans, and War Destined is now feeling the pain as light missiles are streaming across the field on top of the Executor.
Yeah, it just seems like Thermodynamics are trying to rush towards this Osprey Navy issue, try and get some damage down on it, but the Scimitar seems to be holding it, and it seems to be kiting away. If you look at all of Exodus ships, they seem to just be backwards and leading Thermodynamics on a little bit of a chase that they can't win, battle cruisers being slower than cruisers. And this
dropping down now, not taking the advice I gave him on our move date last night, and Vogel's still surviving, taking a good amount of reps. He was holding in armor, and I can't help but feel that Thermodynamics, with these tracking disruptors and jams across the field, just isn't able to apply anything. And now that the Executor has been dropped, the Hyena couldn't receive any reps, and Exodus is in an absolutely commanding position.
Yeah, we're beginning to get to the point where a lot of these ships are about to hit reload. So they're going to try and finish one last Fleet Hurricane and then hold on. That's why you've seen the damage all of a sudden stop or drop. It seems to hit a lot of reload with these rapid lights, and now they're waiting 30 seconds before they can fire again. Hurricane and this Svipal is not dropping as quickly as you'd expect, as each of these ships have different fire weights, so they'll slowly start to come into reload at different times. As the Svipal's now starting, and the Fleet Hurricane is dropping into low armor, and the Svipal's finally down.
Yeah, Exodus is just picking this Thermodynamics core apart. They were definitely the favorites coming into this match, and I believe that the pick ban phase really shows why. Just banning out Guardian Oneros when you're flying a kiting comp team like this, and also knowing that Thermodynamics probably doesn't have a Rabisu to bring in to circumvent that ban, and then kind of really just pigeonholing the enemy team into thinking that they should bring Arbitrators against something that I'm sure that Thermodynamics saw in practice against Exodus, as I know the two of them have been scrimming. Beatron now dropping this up 36 points to nothing.
Yeah, this Navy Harbinger of Whiplash is finally going down. The tracking disruptors, all on them, are really heading the damage by Thermodynamics. This Orthrus is just putting up and down, while the Scimitar is trying to keep it alive. It's trying to kite away and get out of range of all of these Harbingers, but it doesn't look like it can because it is scrammed.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how Systematic Chaos in an Orthrus was actually caught by any of these battle cruisers. The Svipal has been dead for some time, and that was really the only ship that should have been able to get anywhere near an Orthrus, being one of the fastest ships in the game. Having said that, Exodus doesn't actually have any links besides Daze, and he might have been outside of the skirmish speed link, so that could be a possible explanation why Thermodynamics trying to chew at this Navy Osprey, but the Fleet Harbinger of A Whiplash is now down into about hull. Exodus just really mind-gaming and outpicking Thermodynamics really hard. Now that A Whiplash drops, I just don't see any way, even from the word go, that Thermodynamics had a way into this. As sad as it is to say, their comp is just really dying in a blaze of fire here.
Yeah, Exodus did really well at the start with kiting back and spreading their team out and just leading them forward. Extra range when you're flying backwards and they're flying towards you. So they just kept out of the maximum amount of range and just picked away at all these ships and killing them with the huge amount of burst these rapid lights seem to give. Looks like Vogelis in the Navy Osprey is finally going to drop. He's just been killed there. Managed to just run out of reloads on his ancillary shield repair and just got shot.
On Thermodynamics right now, I can't help but think that when they saw the bans from Exodus, they thought that Exodus was going to do one of two things. They were going to bring a Rabis to. Exodus definitely has access to those Alliance Tournament ships, so they thought that they were bringing that or maybe bringing Deacons, which is why we see Arbitrators being rather cheap tracking disruption, and they just completely gambled incorrectly. Exodus, having lost the Orthrus and the Navy Osprey for the entire core of Thermodynamics, still being picked apart, really mind game. Once again, I can't help but overstate how well Exodus picked this match, and this kind of mind games, if they can continue to do this to their opponents later on in the bracket, will serve them greatly. Exodus is not a team that traditionally people think as being really strong at the kind of mind games and the theory crafting, but definitely showing that they contend with some of the heavyweights in that arena, as well as their individual piloting, which has also been excellent throughout.
Yeah, you saw something very good here. Scimitar was shot by Thermodynamics, and it burned away trying to get that transversal, and the moment Thermodynamics tried to swap to something else because the Scimitar's out of range, you immediately saw it was Waza QC in the Orthrus instantly respond and burn maximum transversal towards the Scimitar and just grab into as close as rep range as it can to stay alive. And Thermodynamics have realized this, that they're not going to break the Orthrus, and they've swapped back to the Civi.
Yeah, this really hurts to watch. I mean, I'm good friends with Thermodynamics on Tranquility. I fly with them, but I was also the former captain of the Exodus Alliance tournament team, so no matter who lost, I was going to feel a little bit of disappointment. Unfortunately for Thermodynamics, they're going to be exiting down to the lower bracket as Mahuka and his Navy Brutix drops, remaining ship of Truex being the only ship left for Thermo at this point.
Yeah, it just looks like the ship of Truex is just doomed. It's finally dropping into honor, it's got all the EWAR on it, and they're going to finish their last cycle of missiles and essentially win the match. Really good work by Exodus here as fights drop into local. They brought a comp that they were very confident with and executed it perfectly.
Yeah, Axis will be advancing into the round of 16 to face the winner of Fraternity and Rote Capel. And to break that down on the studio, we have Apothny and the rest of our wonderful desk hosts from Event.
I would definitely say it's a unique tier target calling.
Should be fine.
Nope. Nope.
I love EVE Online!
Great match there between Exodus and Thermodynamics. I think that Exodus may have been in the brains of Thermodynamics there. Thermodynamics bringing that MBC core counter comp with the RBs with the tracking computers. If only they'd had a few guidance tracking computers on those RBs, but instead, no, they're all regular tracking disruptors, so they can do anything to the Rapid Light team of Exodus. So Exodus did, in fact, go through and win that match. Reload, will you tell us a little about the Rapid Light Missiles comp? We haven't seen quite as much of them as the drone comp or the MBC core, but they're definitely being one of kind of maybe the third most popular team idea thus far this tournament. How does the Rapid Light Spam work? What are its strengths? What are its weaknesses?
Okay, so Rapid Light Spam is a very, I wouldn't even call it niche. I think it's actually a pretty good comp. It's a very burst heavy comp. So basically, you have to do all your damage really quickly and try and nuke, you know, the support ships or the core ships that you need to do before you get on reload. Because if you're on reload and you've killed nothing, then something has gone very wrong. So the weaknesses are you've got burst DPS. That's a plus and a minus. But it's a very kitey. So you can just starburst, and obviously missiles, they don't need to worry about tracking or range. Well, you do need to worry about range, but Rapid Light Missiles do have quite long range, especially with Orthruses and Navy Ospreys and things like that. They have a very long range, and they can really do some work.
Yeah, so, I mean, originally, just before the tournament started, we were going to have a balance patch back on July 11th, when originally the plan was to have that range nerf to Rapid Lights, the nerf being that hulls with bonuses to missile range, either through flight time or velocity, those would not apply to Rapid Lights. So, for example, the Drake, the Caracal, when using oversized ships on those launches. Instead, that was delayed into a future patch, potentially. Maybe they're going to change the nerf slightly, or maybe they're going to keep it the same and just having it a bit later. We don't really know. But it meant that lots of people were practicing for the Alliance tournament, assuming that Rapid Lights would have that huge nerf. Maybe Rapid Lights comps wouldn't exist anymore. But then they announced that the fact they weren't doing it, they were going to postpone it. So now Rapid Lights come all the way back, and everybody has to rush to grab their old Rapid Light comps from last year. For example, Tusker's using it to great effect last year, all the way up to the finals. Ithaca, what are your thoughts on any balance changes over the past year that have significantly affected the tournament? Has anything come through that's really changed the meta, or have we not really had that much?
I think the big one that everyone has been talking about is the changes to the Tech 3 cruisers. They've affected the meta in the Alliance tournament quite a lot, especially with the complete ban of Tinkers this year as well. Whether or not they'd even be feasible with the new Tech 3 cruisers is of course a different matter. But the change was just so soon before the AT that a lot of teams have just discounted Tech 3 cruisers and not even brought them. I don't think we've seen a single Tech 3 cruiser this entire tournament, and we might not see any unless one team happens to bring something a little bit strange.
Yeah, I mean, Tech 3 Cruiser is a very interesting place now in the tournament, because typically if you weren't doing a Tinker, then they're 18 points for kind of a glorified cruiser. And then when you have those Navy battle cruisers that project so much better with that innate hull bonus down at 13, 18 points is a slightly cheaper battleship. And do you really prefer a Tech 3 cruiser over a battleship in the AT setting? I mean, of course, T2 resists are very nice. Well, that T3 resists really, but that exceptional resist profile, you just don't really have the utility. You don't have the crazy amount of EHP, especially not anymore after the nerf. Can you guys think of any comps in which Tech 3 cruisers might work, that might be feasible, maybe replacing battleships in some way or another? Or do you think they're just completely, we're not going to see them this year at all?
Yeah, we might see some potential like Fly Killer comps now. Fly Killer is an artillery type of headshot made by Hydra Loaded back in the Alliance Tournament 12, I think, where basically the entire idea was just the alpha ships with artillery and also kite away. So Loki's could be a potential Fly Killer replacement towards Sleipnir's. It's a potential, but that's honestly the only way I can think of some sort of replacement for a comp, really, Fly Killer.
Still, looking forward to our next match. We have our final match before the break for today. It's going to be Fraternity versus Rote Capel. Another really interesting match here. Fraternity have been one of those AT teams that didn't start off very well a few ATs ago, but they've been very ascendant. Their star has been rising. The all-Chinese team who do not play on the Chinese server, but they are actually on Tranquility, playing with us guys. Then against Rote Capel, who previously extraordinarily strong team. They have some of the highest pedigree of any tournament team in its history, but they unfortunately have been on the descent, not performing as well as they perhaps have in recent years, with many of their members moving to places like Camel and to other very good tournament teams, but kind of removing that core, removing that institutional knowledge. So perhaps we've got a case where one team's rising, one team's falling, and they're going to meet in the middle. What are your guys' thoughts on this upcoming match, Ithaca?
I think you hit it on the head there. You've got one team that's got a lot of experience, but they're maybe a little bit on the down, versus Fraternity, who've just been going kind of from strength to strength in tournaments, especially as a newer team. So I think it's one of those. It's a real Rubicon moment for Rote Capel. Are they going to sort of pull out of this dive and put together something good and have another good run this year, or is this going to continue their descent down into the lower brackets of the tournament?
Reelo, do you have any thoughts on this upcoming match?
I think Fraternity are. I'm hoping that they'll actually win this one, because I have good faith in them. Chance City, back in Worlds Collide, Fraternity actually spied on us during the Camel Empire, so they know what they're doing. So I'm hoping that Fraternity will have this one.
So if we look at what they brought last time around, we have Fraternity bringing a Balgorn and a Starte and a Neros, a Harbinger Navy, a Brutix Navy, 2 Maulers, the T1 cruiser love we've got here, a Hound, a Crucifier, and a Daredevil. So a take on the Bal plus MBCs, very light on the MBCs, only 2 of them, but it does have that Balgorn on top, which adds a lot of power, and then using an Astarte. Those extra links, T2 tank, very strong ship there. Then if we have a little look at what Rote Capel brought, they brought their signature double Armageddon, Absolution, Guardian, double Blackbird, Hyena, double Vexor, Daredevil comp. So very heavy control comp with double ECM, those Armageddons, which I believe were rapid heavy missile fit. Definitely something that we really only be seeing Rote Capel do in somewhat a lesser vein to Ronin. Rote Capel are definitely a team with very much their own style. They play to some extent on meta, but they definitely have their own take on things, their own spin on things, which makes them a very difficult opponent to prepare against. You know, if you're preparing against an established team like Tuskers or PL, maybe less so PL, maybe Exodus is a better example, you need to practice against what's on meta, and the difficulty comes from finding a team to practice against who will be able to execute as well as they can. Whereas if you're going up against a Ronin or a Rote Capel, perhaps you don't know what they're going to bring. So not only do you need to find people whose piloting skill is that of that level of Rote and Ronin, which is certainly very high, if not as high as, say, a Tuskers, you need people who have put hours and hours of practice into these weird comps, because the level of understanding Rote will have this double Armageddon comp, as the Ronin do with their Logifrig comps, is going to be so much higher than anyone else's, because they've been running it for years and years and years. They really know its ins and outs, they know its strengths, they know its weaknesses. So what are your guys' thoughts on the comps that they brought last time? Based on that, do you have any preference on who might win, Rote versus Fraternity?
I think based on what they brought last time, I think I'm going to give the edge to Rote here, because they're taking what they know they can do well and executing it reasonably well. Now, they have struggled a little bit lately with this execution. Their theatre crafting is quite solid. They're bringing something that they're good at, and if they can just get that execution sorted today and do it well, then it's going to be very hard for Fraternity to counter it, because it's not an on-meta comp that they tend to bring, which, as you mentioned, very hard to practice against.
Now, Reload, if you could give us a little analysis on the bans here. Rote has banned the Deacon and the EOS, a lot more respect for Logifigs this year, and then Fraternity have banned the Guardian and the Aneros. So if you want to bring a T2 Armor Logi, you're left only with the Thalia, that T2 Galente Frig. Reload, what are your thoughts based on the bans?
They are scared of armor comps, so there could be a potentially of trying to gimp the dual Armageddon core that Rote brings so much. Obviously, they're bringing, you know, Armageddon, they're bringing the Guardian, they're going to bring in an Aneros, so they're going to try and ban out, well, they're going to try and phase out the Guardian and Aneros with the Armageddons.
So kind of interestingly there, then kind of to throw off your opponents from their strength, kind of pulling out their Tech 2 armor logi. Do you think it's still viable to run kind of that double Armageddon core, maybe with a Tech 1 cruiser logi, maybe even the Thalia, or do you think that Rota are going to have to kind of go back to the drawing board and show us something new this time around?
I reckon they can bring in an Augurer or an Executor, which is fine, but obviously you're gimping a logistics. They can obviously upgrade around the Executor, which they probably have prepared for, so I'm actually kind of scared of this dual Armageddon core if it does come.
Well, let's find out what Rote are going to bring against Fraternity in our final match before the break for AT15. Let's hand it over to the casters.